Good evening, YouTube. DutyRon checking back in tonight with another video. And tonight we're going to talk with the co-director of a local Kern coalition against human trafficking. We're going to also have our great friend, Sergeant Bill Cannon, who is becoming a regular on this show. Again, my name is DutyRon, retired New York City police detective with 20 plus years in law enforcement. And if you like everything true crime related, breaking news from a police and law enforcement perspective, please consider hitting the subscribe button, hitting that notification bell so you will get all things DutyRon when I go live or when I upload another video. Guys, again, thank you to my Patreon supporters, my channel members, and all the people who positively interact in the live stream. I greatly appreciate you guys. And to the replay viewers, thank you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart to the replay viewers. You guys are instrumental in getting out this video, making sure we get our message out there, because remember, it's about the boys. It's about Orrin and Orson West, sincere and classic. These are two boys that are missing since December 21st, 2020. That is when they were reported missing. We don't know exactly when they went missing. But again, folks, that's what this live stream is all about. And again, if you are interacting and putting messages in the chat, please consider that family members, biological family members, friends, relatives, people of the community, the police chief, news reporters, and everything under the sun, they all tune in to these live streams. So keep that in mind when you're putting out comments, when you're making comments in the chat. It's important that we have respect and dignity for the missing and for the victims' families. Again, I want to just quickly show a video to you guys. Bakersfield, Kern County Sheriff, the FBI came out and made a humongous arrest at a local motel that's been sex trafficking, human trafficking, probably drug dealing, and probably everything under the sun. This happened a short time ago, and it was one of the larger human trafficking rings broken up. And it also simultaneously happened in Los Angeles, in the LA County. So I just want to show you real quick, for those of you who missed this or aren't aware of it, I want to play it quickly for you guys so you can watch a little bit. Our guest was instrumental in actual assistance in this 2-year-long investigation, and I think it's important that you guys see it. So let me add this to the stream so you guys can see it real quick. Give me 2 seconds, because I am, as we know, challenged when it comes to technology. You know, DutyRon's challenged when it comes to technology. But here we go. I'm going to play it full screen for you so you could see it, and then we'll get right into it.
Crime that affects thousands in Kern.
Hold on. I got to get it back.
Our top story this hour, law enforcement uncovers a human trafficking ring in Bakersfield. It's a devastating crime that affects thousands in Kern County every year. 17's Moses Small joining us live now along South Union Avenue with this report. Good evening, Moses.
Tammy, good evening. I'm outside the Desert Star Motel in Bakersfield, where law enforcement descended in force at about 7 this morning. We say they're breaking up a crime ring, targeting some of the most vulnerable members of the community. Behind the flashing lights and yellow tape, police find an unsettling scene.
The activity this morning here at this motel is the result of a joint investigation between local, state, and federal partners into some human trafficking at this location.
Bakersfield police partnered with Homeland Security and the FBI, deploying canine units and armored vehicles. Authorities say this sting is years in the making.
I really want to commend members of the Bakersfield Police Department and federal agents for working the last 2 years to bring down this motel, which in essence is a modern day brothel.
3 suspects are in custody according to a BPD press release. 43-year-old Curtis Moore of Bakersfield was arrested for felony firearm possession and participating in a street gang. The other 2 suspects face federal charges related to human trafficking. Their exact charges and identities have not been released. Officers say they also found 3 illegal firearms and confirmed that the January 15th arrest of Javon Lewis is related to this case. Human trafficking experts say this problem isn't new.
We've been down on Union Avenue for 12 years now. So our studies show that there's 750 to 1,000 different women who are being sold in the city of Bakersfield over the course of a month. 8 out of 10 of them are not out there by choice, but someone is actually profiting off of them.
Experts say many victims of sex trafficking are too young to drive a car.
The average age that a girl enters into human trafficking is 11 to 13 years old.
Bakersfield police say the investigation into the motel is ongoing, and law enforcement expects more charges in the coming days.
So that's a telltale sign that there is more than there's definitely a problem going on in that Bakersfield area. And that's nothing new. I know that you guys who live there have expressed that in comments to me, in emails and messages. And by the way, I want to address the folks that send in tips and messages to me. I get a lot of these on my website. I get a lot of them directly on social media. I want to say thank you and kudos to everyone who comes forward with ideas and tips. I forward all of those things straight to Chief John Walker. So thank you for that. And I encourage you to keep using the anonymous tip line. So I want to introduce real quickly. He is a regular here on the stream, Sergeant Bill Cannon, a 27 or 28 year. We don't know yet whether he jacks his time up or keeps it real. I think he was 28 years, Manhattan North homicide, detective sergeant, first grade almost. He's not a first grader, but he had the special assignment pay. I want to welcome Bill Cannon, a favorite of everybody, into the live stream. Bill, thank you for joining. How are you, Bill?
I'm great, and thank you so much for inviting me to the show tonight.
You know, Bill, all of my audience, I mean, we share an audience now. All of my people, they send love to you continually in the comment section and in the chat. You're an invaluable person here for us, a source of information coming directly from a seasoned investigator. And that's why I continually ask you and have you come on. And I want to just say personally, thank you, brother to brother, for coming in here and spreading out the word, the message of what police do behind the scenes. It's tremendous.
Well, thank you so much. I'm flattered by that long praise you gave me there.
It's not. I'm not just tipping my cap to you because I'm trying to dip it in butter. But what I'm looking to do is give thanks and praise because you do a lot for. When I see messages, Bill, and this is truth. This is right hand up. When I see messages and emails that come to me and they say, DutyRon, I'm learning more about what goes on behind investigations, and I have a deep admiration and more respect for police. That's good work. And it's in part because of what you do and the message that you put out there of exactly what goes on behind the scenes without obviously exposing the cards. It's important for people because a lot of our housewives and our dads are out there and they want to, get to the bottom. They want to play, detective along with us. But if they don't know exactly what it takes to effect a lawful arrest, then they don't understand. But they're getting a better understanding. So kudos to you, brother. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much.
So you and I were talking behind the scenes with our next guest that we have. This guy is 19 years in our business. Hold on, let me shut that off. So 19 years in our business, and this is a guy who helps co-chair the Kern County Coalition Against Human Trafficking, and he's doing a fantastic job since 2012, I believe he told me. So I want to introduce our next guest, I'm going to add him to the stream. Thank you so much, Dustin, for joining us. If you
Gentlemen,
could,
thank you for having me.
it's a pleasure to have you. If you could just give a little bit of your credentials to the listening audience, so this way they understand. I'm going to put you solo.
Yeah, so been, like you said earlier, 19 years law enforcement experience. And part of that, I got hooked up with this organization that started in Kern County and Bakersfield more centrally, but to handle victims and survivors of human trafficking throughout the county in 2012. Upon that, I was on the steering committee and then eventually became one of the co-directors along with my fellow co-director, Sandy Wu. And since then, we've just been, doing our thing. Again, we are mostly here for the victims and survivors. We bring everyone together that's involved in this type of work, including all the law enforcement here in Kern County, as well as the Department of Human Services and nonprofit organizations, as well as non-government organizations that advocate for victims and survivors of human trafficking. So it's rewarding work, but there is a lot of work to do here in Kern County, being, the gateway. We have major freeways that go through here, and usually in exploitation of sexual victims usually happens here prior to getting to Las Vegas. This is kind of the last biggest stop before you get to Vegas.
Yeah, and you kind of explained behind the scenes, because Dustin and I spoke for a little while today. It's like it's almost like build the highway. What is it? 95 North, the connection for guns and drugs down from Florida up to New York. Kern County is like the gateway to Las Vegas for human trafficking, and I wasn't aware of that. So,
Dustin, one of the sad things is that it mentioned in the video that the average age of someone human trafficked is between the ages of 11 and 13. And just think, our audience, think of how horrendous their life must be to have this almost as an option to them to get away from their horrible life. And they're being victimized by really pimps and low-level people, and being human trafficked into the sex trade. And as I said, the horrible thing is that this life may be a step better than the life that they fled.
Bill, you're exactly right. And, they truly perceive that. That's a perception that somehow they believe that could be somewhat better, or they're just sold the goods to believe that there is some type of better life that they're in, and convinced by these pimps that, that's the way to go. And we see that both on the sex trade as well as on the labor side. Forced labor is also a part of human trafficking. So, it's a bag of goods sold by a, snake oil salesman. And then when you're so far deep into it, you can't get out.
Right. I like to refer to these people as jagaloons, and it's a joke that I have running with my subscribers and friends here. But we call these unscrupulous jagaloons because when you look it up, it's really like the definition is like a criminal that acts like a child. But these are people who are serious at their game and their business, and really nobody, they don't have hearts. Nobody gets in their way. I wanted to ask you, Dustin, in your 12 years with the coalition, would it be safe for you to say it's gotten better, or stayed the same, or gotten worse?
If you look, depending on how you look at it. So if you look at statistics, the numbers are going to rise as you start paying attention to a certain area of if trafficking is going on. And that can change. Obviously, it can change with a change of regimes when it comes to the law enforcement side of things, all that. So what happens is, as you get the awareness starts to come out, as you gentlemen know, you push it further down. It goes further. You figure out how to go further down. So just like when you saw Backpage, which was a big deal here, and My Red Book, when those shut down, it just pushed it further down for the law enforcement guys to catch up and try to figure out how these victims are being recruited. And so a lot of it moved to, believe it or not, the bigger Facebook and Instagram through the use of hashtags. And if you're familiar with hashtags, you click on a certain hashtag, and if it could be drugs or it could be, stolen guns, who knows? And then it leads you down that path. And so we started seeing a lot of that, like Craigslist, for example, when the escort portion got taken off, well, then it just became made for hire or something like that.
Yeah, and they just adjust their modus operandi, and Bill likes to use that word, so I got to pick it up a little bit. So they use they just adjust and adapt. When Backpage got shut down, they were like, oh, well, what's next? When we're talking about Sincere and Classic, Orrin and Orson West, there's a lot of talk, Dustin, about the possibility of these children being sex trafficked or sold back to their biological family. And, Bill and I spoke about this. We speak quietly on the side, but we also interact with the chat and the comments. What would it be, in a professional opinion, chance-wise? I mean, we never rule anything out. And that's another thing that I want to say is, as investigators, Dustin is an investigator, Bill, 27, 28, we don't know, 28 years in the homicides squad, 15 of those, 28 years. He and all three of us here, and any good investigator, will say no stone gets unturned, but no possibility gets just pushed to the side. In your professional opinion, what is a 3 and a 4-year-old? I mean, how many times have you come across a 3 or 4-year-old trafficked to? And I know that there are really sick people out there in this world that do this stuff, but in your experience down in that area, how often are you seeing young boys or girls trafficked?
Yeah, in my experience, none. There hasn't been a case like that, especially if you have 2 children missing. We had a case kind of when I first came on, and it was a missing female, and she was gone for a few days, and she might have been, I think, 5 or 6 years old at the time, maybe even younger. And come to find out, it was her father that killed her, left her in a field. And being, children resilient the way they are, she was able to muster herself up and pull herself from out of the ground and go to a street where she someone stopped and found this dirty kid that was half buried in a shallow grave. To my knowledge, that going back, that's the only thing I'd ever come across as far as even a child missing where they were hurt by their biological family. But children like that doesn't really happen here in this local area. And as far as in the United States, I don't think I've heard of that. We see a lot of that internationally, where you see what they call sex tourism, or people will log on a group chat like this and watching, a child be molested. So you see some of that stuff internationally.
Well, Dustin, I would just, if I can intervene 1 second, is that this investigation had been going on for 2 years, and they wound up only arresting 3 people. So if these kids, their names came up or something came up in the investigation in regards to these 2 young children, Orrin and Orson, they would know that. It would have came up in the investigation. However, it didn't.
Right.
So you always have to look at the closest people, and that's the parents. You got to look right at them, and that should be 100% the focus of this investigation. And had there been some information in regards to this takedown of these, this child case, then their names would have come up, but apparently they didn't.
Yeah, it was interesting. Yeah, and I know some people. I saw some of the comments in the prior shows about that, believing that, the law enforcement here is top notch, like it is everywhere. They would have, and if there would have been informants involved, which I'm not sure if there were, but I would imagine that anyone with any type of heart, whether they were, if they were being victimized themselves and they were finally in a safe position where law enforcement was now with them and they were being advocated, would come forward with that information.
Well, yeah, this is a high profile case.
Right. Absolutely.
And their names would have come up, and the investigators would have come forward and said, of course. So it's to think that they're part of this human trafficking case at this point is just not credible,
Yeah, and I agree. And I think it's important that we went into this area of discussion because, a lot of people, as Bill and I have spoken many times about, and Dustin, you reached out to me, which I thought was fantastic. And I say thank you to you again. This is the bond that goes on between law enforcement. So when, people who are once in the field or still in the field or, somewhere around the field, and they see a group of guys like myself and Bill and Charlie from the Secret Service, and we had Irma on, Miss Homicide. When we have these great guests, people like Dustin are paying attention. They're watching our shows. And I thank you for reaching out to me because it helps to make the listening audience. These are people who are invested in this. They're invested in this big time. So to get real legit information to them, not rumors, not something that's made up. And I'm not saying that people are doing that, but what happens is on Facebook, I'm not talking about my fellow YouTube content creators, because there's people who are boots on the ground, pounding the pavement, doing gumshoe work, doing stuff that the police can't do because of personnel issues. It's a vast area of desert and land. My YouTube content creators, the people who are boots on the ground, I tip my cap to them day in and day out, and I tell them to be safe and be careful. But what I'm saying is the internet rumors that happen in these chat groups, in these Facebook rooms where people are talking, it just spreads like a cancer. It's like wildfire. So that's one of the motivating factors for myself and Bill and several of us seasoned law enforcement professionals to try to spread the word and get it out there. Hey, listen, we look at these things, we don't dismiss them, but once we look at them and we make a determination, this is just spinning our wheels. You got to go to the next. Bill, I know you want to expand on it.
No, I'm just saying that I used to teach at a college after I retired from the NYPD, and Myrtle Beach Police Department was recruiting at the college that I spoke at, and the recruiter was a former NYPD detective, and he talked about what a huge problem human trafficking was in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina.
Yep.
And I was like shocked. I was like, wow, I would never have thought that, here's a vacation area of the United States, a very popular area, and human trafficking was a huge problem. So if it's a problem in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, it's probably a problem in, ABC community anywhere in the United States,
Yeah, it's a problem everywhere. And Dustin can comment on that because he's looking at trends and different kinds of things. He's in this 12 years. So I know that his organization is following the science, the maps, the data. And if we look at California, it's got some of the highest trafficking. I think there's one other state. Is it Nevada that takes the cake?
No, it's California. No,
yeah, I thought it was
California, followed by Texas, and I think you look at it in big numbers, but Las Vegas is just overran, and I don't think their numbers could be higher, even though they have a human trafficking task force as well as their vice unit, that just works 24/7. Those guys have a huge squad of what they do. But yeah, you're right. As a former resident of South Carolina, there is a problem there as well. I lived down in Hilton Head in Resort Town, and I saw it back then. It's my first ever human trafficking case I ever came across was in Japan, watching international Colombians that were brought in on visas to work and then forced to be in strip clubs. And so no matter where you go, the face changes in how people are trafficked, and that has to do with how much money is there. So what type of is street level, escort level, depending on the resort town. In California, most of the trafficking that happens is all around Disneyland. So all of that area is just street level.
Yeah, this is a nationwide problem, and it brings me to my next point. First, I want to say thank you for the super sticker from Sharon Stevenson. Thank you for the super sticker. And I want to acknowledge the chat real quick because I usually do that in the beginning, but I did not do that. So I want to say a special thank you to everybody who's in the chat sending questions. I'm looking at them. Our back office is not here tonight, so it's just me. I got the watch. I'm the duty captain. I'm everything. I'm the duty chief tonight, so I got to look at everything. It's kind of difficult. I'm going to play for you at the request of Dustin the traffic life. It's a 2-minute. It's about a 2-minute and 50-second video, and it's important that you guys see this because this is a problem that is nationwide, and it probably is worldwide, as you just spoke about, Dustin. But I want to play for our guests and all the people in the chat. Kimberly, hello. Thank you for joining. Hi, Melissa. Good to see you. Thank you, Pia. Guys, let me know where you're watching from, your city, state, and country. So this way, everybody who's in the chat can see it. I'm not going to call you out, but I'd like to see where the audience is from. Heidi, great to see you. Beth, Josh, thank you so much. All right, I'm going to play this. It's 2 minutes and 42, and let's see where everyone's watching from. We're going full screen, guys, so if you need to use the restroom or anything, 2 minutes.
I didn't speak any English. I can't tell anybody, can't talk to anyone.
I don't know how a young girl ends up out there. How does anybody end up out there?
No one wants to talk about their daughter being a prostitute.
It ripped away any part of me I had left. It made me feel worthless and useless and like I was nothing but dirt.
Just working at a job you don't like and feeling like you're not appreciated. This is genuinely being forced to work in conditions that nobody else in the United States has to work in.
I think I'd suggest that human trafficking, first of all, is a crime. I think we need to recognize that reality, that it's a crime, that it's also a human rights abuse, and that it's something that isn't on every street corner, but at the same time is a much bigger problem than I think people realize.
Because of victims not being identified and because we do have a problem, it's more like a revolving door in the sex trade.
They are forced to be working 24/7, 5, 6, 7 days at a time. And the pimps are master manipulators, and they generally traffic these women out of fear.
Great. So we got a tremendous, let me just I muted you. Sorry, Dustin. You got to unmute your mic.
Should be good. Good.
Okay. You guys are good. So that was pretty powerful. A pretty powerful message. And I saw you had a part in there, Dustin. Talk about, what this organization does to help provide a safe passage for victims of the sex trafficking trade. And it's really an enslavement. It's like modern day slavery, right? And that's what you talk about in this.
Right. Exactly what it's called. So the coalition is tasked with two things: basically lay the groundwork of what a funded task force would be if it was law enforcement led. And the other side of the coin that we do, or one of the things that we do, is we kind of man the human trafficking hotline. We're the regional liaisons and representatives for the National Human Trafficking Hotline out of Washington, D.C. And what that means is that anytime someone calls the National Human Trafficking Hotline and they, for example, get sent to law enforcement, we kind of follow up on those cases. We see them via email if they're done, via text message from a phone, and we make sure that the victims and survivors are treated in a way that's victim and survivor centered through the entirety of the investigation. All the law enforcement comes to the table. Department of Human Services, also known as CPS, comes to the table, and they actually have their own unit that deals specifically with the child trafficking section. So earlier, I don't want any of your viewers to get confused that child trafficking does exist here, but what specifically has happened in this case is potentially what or is perceived as is an abduction, which is not common. Trafficking can be in different ways, but we can talk about that later as far as what an abduction is versus someone that is kind of forced into trafficking. So yeah, we bring everyone to the table. We ensure that it's going along according to the model of how the federal model of how you respond to these, whether it's on the law enforcement side or the advocacy side, and then we continue on. So as survivors come out of their horrendous experience that they've gone through, we pay for schooling. We help, we just connect them to exactly where they need to go. And then the big thing is we maintain the confidentiality of that. So we do a lot behind the scenes to where you would have no idea who the survivor is, how they're affiliated with us. We don't, ask them to speak on our behalf or anything like that, so they can move on with their lives and get back to being normal.
I just wanted to mention something that, and this is a shout out to victims of human trafficking. There's a thing for our listeners that's called the Stockholm Syndrome. And that's where kidnapped victims identify with their captors. And it's you could make a correlation or a parallel to people that are human trafficked. They identify somehow with their pimps, and they almost feel sorry for them, and they feel a connection with them because they never had a good connection maybe with a loved one or someone that loved them in their life. So that's why it's so difficult to separate them from even these pimps that are miserable human beings. And that is something they discovered, a profile they discovered from kidnapping victims. But it is definitely apropos to this situation of people that are human trafficked.
Correct. And, and a lot of these victims of human trafficking, actually, it comes under the guise of a domestic partnership. So there's a lot of domestic violence, those parallels that come in. And if you remember how domestic violence, back in the 70s and 80s, when everyone started opening their eyes to it, no one could understand how these women wouldn't testify against, their husband or spouse or whoever that was being violent towards them. And you see a lot of that in trafficking. And that, of course, that's just the way they're exploited and how the trafficker manipulates them into believing this is some type of relationship. And by the way, you have to love me enough to sleep for money. And
Dustin, they would call that the cycle of violence.
Correct.
Where someone would get slapped one day,
mm-hmm.
and then the person who did that to them would say, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry," and then it would escalate from there to the point where someone could nearly be beaten to death. And
it's insanity what goes on with this. I want to just acknowledge quick, Mac Danny put up a super chat. She said, "They found my nephew after 59 scary days after he was sold into trafficking at age 4. Protect all children, even if they are not yours." Mm-hmm. And Meglo, thank you for the $24.99 super chat. I appreciate that. Mac Danny, I am so happy that they were able to, after 59 days, bring your nephew home. Thank God. I have up on here, I'm going to go full screen. This is the World Population Review. California human trafficking rate per 100,000, 3.80. Human trafficking cases, this is for this is probably for 2020, but it says human trafficking statistics by state in 2021. 1,507 cases. You said Texas was next.
Yeah, yeah. So if you look at Polaris, I don't know what website this is. Polaris is where the National Human Trafficking Hotline, where all the stats come in. So there are different stats out there depending on their background.
I'll get this off and I'll look at Polaris for us. I'm sorry to interrupt. It's just I wanted to put this figure out there. And, some of the people are going off on some of the different things between Trezell and Jacqueline. Those are the adoptive parents. There was some, people that are out there snapping photos of them as they're going about their day. And they were found to be in an adult shop, an adult sex toy shop. Bill, I want you to address this. I mean, investigation wise, what do we got here? I already know the answer, but I want you to talk about it.
I mean, that doesn't say anything relative to the investigation. I mean, that's just who they are as human beings. But I mean, that doesn't, people that go to sex shops, that doesn't mean they abuse their children or they've killed their children, but it's just another part of their life. But I don't think you can draw any parallels to any guilt in regards to that.
Yeah, I didn't think so. But, it's an interesting thing. They're alleged to have their children run out of a gate at their California City home, and they're out and about just prancing around in adult sex stores. It's offensive probably to people who live in the area. They're like, what the hell's wrong with these people? Their 2 children that they adopted are missing, and you're out shopping for dildos. I mean, I'm just saying that's probably where the anger is generating from. Like, I had to put it in layman's terms.
Right, but Ron, in a court of law, what would that would prove nothing. It would prove nothing.
So it's the Polaris Project, Dustin?
Yes, should pop. Okay. Polaris.org.
Yeah, let me get that up. Let me get that up and show it on the screen. I'm going to go full with it, but you guys are still in audio wise. So it says freedom happens now. And it's a human trafficking site. I want to try to get to the numbers.
You can go down myths, facts, and statistics, and that should take you right on that pull down. You had it up.
Myths right here, trafficking.
Up at top at the pull down where you had it. Okay. You should see it.
I was right.
Down, right. 3 down. There you go.
Yep, I got you. All right, so walk us through this, what we're seeing here. Let me get this super chat off there.
So you're on that prior one, I believed, I think I understand why it was saying Nevada. I think it was talking per capita, the cases that are reported per, the actual how many people are in that place. And of course, California will probably just based on, the fact that the high population. And I guess you could say that for, Manhattan. But, this has to do with who calls in on the cases. And every year it is updated. And you should see they sometimes do it by states.
Right. So it says in 2019, Polaris worked on 11,500 situations of human trafficking reported. National Human Trafficking Hotline. These situations involve 22,326 individual survivors, nearly 4,384 traffickers, and 1,912 suspicious businesses. A lot of these things act under the guise of a business, and that's again where we pull in the Trezell and Jacqueline connection with some of their family members. There's a smoke shop, there's a tow truck company, and a firearms store that a lot of people are talking about. I think the guy's last name is Jones. That he put up the $25,000 or $30,000 worth of the reward money, and a lot of people are pointing fingers at that place to say that they're up to no good. I don't know because I don't live there, but a lot of people are talking about it. I actually mentioned it to Sheriff John Walker on my phone conversation with him, and he not dismissed it, but he really didn't. He couldn't talk about it. So, but I did bring it up. That was one of the uncomfortable moments that I had with him. But I tried to keep it pretty casual because it was my first conversation with him. So here's a statistic from 2019 U.S. National Human Trafficking Hotline stats. 22.3 on the trafficking victims and survivors, 11.5 on the situations of human trafficking, 4,300 traffickers, and 1,912 suspicious business. Doug, Dustin, do you want to elaborate on these? What these mean?
Yeah. So when you talk about, trafficking victims and survivors, 22,326, and that number's just, risen as the years go on. I'm interested to see 2020 and 2021, and I would imagine, COVID plays into that. However, and then the 11,500 situations of human trafficking, and that could be necessarily where the calls come in and maybe the victim or survivor is not identified at that point. So if you can add those two numbers, then you find that maybe 4,384 traffickers have been identified, but maybe no victims or survivors have been located. And then when you talk about suspicious businesses, that could be just the calls that come in referring to suspicious businesses. For a lot of years, and Polaris still puts it out, a toolkit for law enforcement on how to respond to illicit massage businesses. So, getting into that was a big thing and still is. And one of the biggest cases did come out of California a few years back, where it had spanned almost the entire Southern California all the way up into Bakersfield and further north. So, and there are other studies out there that come out from the academic side of things, and they, get specific into things as far as certain countries on people that are coming here, being brought here in a legitimate way, and how they're trafficked once they get to the United States, and up into some studies of how some money has been used to maybe fund terrorism overseas. So those are things that some of the subject matter experts that I work with look into specifically.
Right. This looks like a great website, and I think I'm going to link this in the description, along with obviously your organization that you work for, Dustin. I think that these are two very good. This is a wealth of information. But as law enforcement professionals, the three of us, our recommendations are always keep your eyes open. Don't leave your children unattended. Don't leave your teenagers and put them in precarious positions where they can be snatched off the street. These things happen. Dustin, I know you could speak to it. People's kids get snatched left and right, and it is a dangerous position to be in. I don't know what happened with my camera. I got to get I'm going to put you two on because I think my battery died, so I got to go check it. I'm going to remove.
Dustin, I wanted to ask you a question. Would legalizing prostitution cut down or cut back on human trafficking?
So I get that question asked a lot, and probably one of the first questions I was ever asked. I went to a national conference, and they actually had a speaker that talked about that. And it's kind of, it's hard to quantify what could happen. So I'll go back to my earlier statement about if you just get rid of. So if you get rid of, you go on Craigslist and you eliminate the escort section, it finds another way. My personal opinion is that just like anything, if someone that exploits things and someone that learns how to make and wants to, manipulate and make money off of something, they'll find a way. So, what if you're legally selling, marijuana, for example, you get robbed. So these marijuana shops, that we have, they get robbed and people die. I mean, and so that's because someone's trying to capitalize. I would imagine if they legalize prostitution, who's going to protect these ladies or men that are involved in this type of prostitution? Who's going to protect them from being robbed, from being killed, being exploited? And if it's legal, then how do you charge someone for trafficking at that point? Human trafficking would be illegal. So,
well, the only thing is that maybe they could control the ages of the people working in the sex the sex business, if it was legalized.
And I think, obviously you can imagine all the things that would happen, exploitation of, if it's legal, does it make it legal for then a husband to go and cheat on his wife, and then the legal prostitute to then let the wife know what happened, and then you have an extortion? I mean, I'm just thinking outside of the box, but yeah, I've been asked that, many times about the age as well. And again, I would think that, if people are going about the legal means of doing it and they're going to set up a business that's an escort business, there's going to be a young gang member that's going to say, no, we're going to do it my way.
Yeah. Thank you guys for taking over. I have like a little battery pack that runs my camera, and this is just a little behind the scenes of DutyRon tech. My son must have used it during the course of the day, and it had no juice left in it, so I had to go get a second pack and put it there. I use the Anchor, by the way. That's linkable.
You're quick, DutyRon.
I don't mess around, Bill. I always have. You know how we used to go out on patrol with double guns? I always brought three.
Extra rounds, you had extra clips,
extra magazines, extra rounds, speed loaders, everything.
I used to call certain locations, that's a double clip location.
Let me just say quickly hello to everybody in the chat fast. Thank you to my Patreon supporters, the channel members, and everybody who's positively interacting. If you please have not considered it, please become a member of this channel or subscribe. I have an Amazon affiliate where you can go, ladies and gents, shopping with my Amazon affiliate. It's a free way to support this channel. It helps keep me rolling with content creating and buying equipment. If you saw what I have here behind the scenes, I think I'm going to take a picture of it and post it in the DutyRon VIP members group. It's just an overwhelming amount of equipment. And thank you to Joshua H for always being an engineer and helping me behind the scenes. I want to just also encourage the people that leave the comments down below. When they become like hundreds, like I literally get hundreds of these comments, it's hard for me to get back to you right away. So if I don't answer you and it takes a day or two, just understand that it's not a matter of DutyRon's blowing you off and not answering your question. I need to get to the questions, but I have to get to them under my time frame. I'm juggling a lot of different things. Bill tried to connect with me today. He drove through Long Island to see one of his family members, and he called me. And where was I? I was on a live stream in a parking lot while my wife was shopping for our snowstorm. So I was driving my wife around like, I'm a husband, married 30 years, a father. My son's birthday was over the weekend. So when the questions pile up, I wish I had an assistant that could answer the questions for me, but that would not make it authentic. So I don't just say, hey, could you do me a favor? Could you just answer these comments because I can't do it? I just wait until I can get to it. So just understand that. Special thank you to all of the respectful supporters of our men and women of law enforcement. Dustin, Bill, and I appreciate the support for our on-duty and retired and all of the people who are out there risking their lives day in and day out. We know from doing the job, other people that are doing it really appreciate the support. This case, Orrin and Orson West and Searing Classic, has hit home for everybody. We all have dozens and dozens of questions. The questions range from how can they afford buying a home, $197,000 home, when they don't work, when they both don't work, and they both don't have good credit. How do these folks go out after weeks of their children missing and go to the Nissan dealer and buy cars? These are all legitimate questions, but there's answers to those questions. They have family members, obviously, that have money that funnel it to them and that they're able to buy these things. There's no law. There's nothing against the law about someone buying a home when they can't afford it. There's nothing against the law about someone going and grabbing a car when they can't afford it. It's just morally not right to us. We say to ourselves, how the that happen? Right? I didn't want to curse, but how the does that happen? You have family members that might have influence, that might have money, that might be willing to give them the money. But these are legitimate questions. Bill, expand on that. What happens in those
DutyRon, one of the parts of this investigation that we and none of the listeners are privy to is the financial part. And that usually is investigated by the district attorney that's assigned to the case. And they'll slap subpoenas on their bank accounts, their investments, their loans, their credit, all of that stuff. And they'll have a pretty good window of view of what their financial situation is and where and if they're getting money from other sources. And that's part of the investigation, but it's usually done by the district attorney's office, through, of course, the detectives that are investigating the case.
Right. So the financials are a big part of the investigation because they want to try to, and as you spoke about many a times, they want to try to get them to a point where they can question them about things, because each question that they ask them leads to another question, right?
Absolutely. And the thing is, if they see an unexplained deposit in their bank account of $50,000, where did that come from? Where did that money come from? And
Right.
that's, that could be used in a prosecution down the road.
Yes. Hey, Dustin, I wanted to ask you a quick question. When it comes to from the law enforcement side, Kern County, Bakersfield, or in Hanson, I know Bakersfield, the FBI, and Cal City PD. When it comes to the foster care or the child protective services that signed off on not just 2, but 4 foster, now fully adoptive. At what point in the investigation down in Southern Cal does the investigators talk to those agencies? And Bill and I can talk about what happens here in New York, because we've seen it, we've heard about it, but I know from state to state and region to region, it varies. So if you could, you don't need to go into details, but if you could speak on that, that would answer a lot of questions to some of our folks out there.
Yeah, so something like this that can perception of how egregious this could be. The local DHS are notified immediately, so that's an immediate. And I never saw it, but I've seen some of the comments before where some children had been removed from the house. I guess that's the immediate response that they're talking about, and from that point on. DHS, CPS starts their investigation, right. And they have statutory times that they have to complete that investigation, of course, until law enforcement tells them, unless it does cross over the law enforcement investigation, then they can actually toll that investigation and hold off because law enforcement has asked them to before interviewing parents in a case like this. But it's usually done immediately, and then they have a criteria that they go through, whether or not it's a 5-day response, 10-day response, or a 15 to 30-day response.
Right. Okay. That says a little bit there. Justice Janine sends in a super chat and says, "Does Jacqueline West's mom work for CPS?" If the question is put at me and Bill, I would say that we don't know. Anybody's guess is as good as ours. And I think civil servants, public servants, most of those folks, I know in New York, those records are kind of transparent and out there. Right, Bill? But I don't think CPS workers or any caseworkers, when it involves children, I'm not sure about the availability of their information. But what do you think about that, Bill? There's
one of these things, this field of in New York City, they call it Bureau of Child Welfare, Administration of Children's Services. They're underpaid and overworked, way overworked. And, it's easy to criticize them, but when you see the volume of the work they have to do, they can't possibly do, they do the best they can, I'll put it that way. They can't possibly do a great job, what we consider a great job, because as I said, they're overwhelmed with caseload. And it's the same in every state of the union, because they're not paying these people enough money. They're not hiring enough of them for the amount of cases they have. So they can just do as good a job as they can possibly do within the parameters that they're working in.
Right. And I think really what that question was alluding to, and I get it. I know where she was going with that. Basically what people are saying is, if Jacqueline West, that's the adoptive mother, if Jacqueline West's mother is somebody in CPS, what that question is alluding to, and correct me if I'm wrong, the person who put that, the comment went away, but I think what they're alluding to is that if Jacqueline's mom worked for CPS, maybe somehow they were in cahoots and able to get them extra, the extra kids for the money. But let me just say this. My mother, my stepmother, my father's second wife, not my biological mom, but my stepmother, who's still alive, worked for Department of Motor Vehicle. And I used to say to her, Ma, because I call her mom, I said, Ma, can I come into motor vehicle and skip the line? And she used to tell me, no, you got to wait in the line. So it doesn't mean, even if the mother does work for CPS, that she can bend the rules, because someone who works in CPS, if you're bending the rules and you get caught, now granted, I know that there's good and bad in every profession. Let's not play stupid here. There's good and bad in every profession, but there's that chance that if you do something that's illegal and you get caught, you're going to get arrested. And then
DutyRon, one of the things are also police departments have a very suspicious relationship with Bureau of Child Welfare. In essence, we don't trust them. I'll just put it that way. Okay. Yeah. Because Bureau of Child Welfare is very happy to blame things on the police department. So it takes it away from them. So in fact, the New York City Police Department had a policy that any child that was a victim of abuse would never, ever be returned to the parents by any member of the NYPD. And I remember with that ruling, CPS telling us, oh, you can return the children to the parents. And I would say, no, come to the hospital. I'll give you the kid and you can return them. I will not return the kid to the parent
because
directly.
There's liability. If we return those kids and then they were consequently killed after that, then it would be on us. And that's
100%.
What Bill is alluding to is 100% the truth. They wanted to take the blame if anything happened to them and say, oh no, NYPD made the decision and gave the kids back. And that's why we put a stop to it. Vinny over at Gilroy Garlic Festival, thank you so much for being a channel member, and thank you for being in here. I appreciate you, Vincenzo. Thank you for the love that you show to the channel. But yeah, it's about accountability. And like you said, they're overworked, underpaid, but that still is not right. We were underpaid and overworked, but we still had to answer those radio runs. You still had to go to the scene of a homicide when someone was shot, stabbed, or killed by another means. You didn't say, "Hey, I got to get home now. It's time to make the Thanksgiving turkey." When someone was killed at a location, you had to do it. You had to stay. So, none of this is by any means an excuse for child welfare or CPS not doing their job. It's documented. Even here in New York, we have a really high-profile case, Michael Valva, who killed his son, baby Thomas Valva. I'm covering that case. They're in the process now of being prosecuted. They're in jail awaiting trial. They're pointing the fingers at CPS because the mother screamed to the top of her lungs to remove her sons. Two of them were autistic. Well, one is still alive. The other one is dead. And the third son was feeding the mother information about abuse and things of that nature. And she begged and pleaded with the courts, and the courts just left them there. And the CPS signed off that everything was fine. And last January, we had a child frozen to death in the garage, 19 degrees Fahrenheit, and he died of hypothermia. But everyone's pointing a finger at CPS. We as human beings want to point the fingers at everybody. I know I work for a big company, and when something goes wrong, the executives of the company point to everybody else but them. And that's how it goes in child welfare, the police department, the detective squad. Nobody wants to take responsibility for a oops. But when you're talking about a oops that involves children and missing children and children that get killed or children that get severely injured and abused, then it's a big problem. So,
yeah, I'll say the DHS here is top notch. They, in that area, to my personal knowledge, it's a small group of people that have the adoption side of things, opposed to people that are going out on the street for what they call emergency response. Then they have the hotline section. So it's not so big that it's so out of control. There's other, obviously larger cities here in California that, you never know what employees, their employees there for 30 years. They've never met each other. That's how big it is and spread out. But here, they're there's a lot of accountability, and I would imagine if anything, which I don't believe, they go through a rigorous background check, to my knowledge, of when it comes to foster care and especially in adoption as well. So it just like anything, if someone slipped through the cracks and they didn't have a record and they were both upstanding citizens at the time and then adopted these kids and some accident happened, I don't think that falls on anyone's shoulders but the perpetrators who did this. And I don't think it and maybe you can find out later on if it could have been prevented or not. I'm pretty sure that would come to light if it did, but I have confidence in our local DHS. And I don't say that just because, and exactly what Bill was saying, I've been around long enough that I remember that, I remember, being told, watch everything they do. If they're talking with the kid, we're not taking any liability upon ourselves. And that stuck with me a lot. I used to, just you get that weird feeling in it. So I know what you're talking about, Bill. And there's been a lot to, patch things up, especially on this human trafficking realm where they have their own unit that deals specifically with child trafficking, and they, come to the table with us. We're all good colleagues within the work profession, and we all know each other on the KCAHT side, and we all know each other on the professional side. And it's true to our hearts. The people that love the work stay in that work, and they're passionate about children, and they're passionate about justice. And so, I know a lot of that's being said. I don't know, if her mom works there or not, or does any of that. I did read some of the comments before that if she was a social worker. So, and to my knowledge, I don't think social workers have too much to do on the adoption side. I think it's done with paralegals in that. So it's not the social workers kind of more on the emergency response side and family reunification and stuff like that, overseeing stuff. So, it's I see in the community, and Cal City's a real small community, and they're looking for healing. Everyone. I mean, this is stretched from all over the world, all the way to New York, and everywhere here in between. I've had friends, text me about this, hearing about this on world news, and this is, without having the answers, you're left wondering, and it makes me think about, some of the cases you guys probably handled where they haven't been solved, and you're still thinking about those. So I know people are looking for closure, and when you don't get that, it's frustrating.
Dustin, one of the things that, and I appreciate how hard it is to be a social worker and how hard their job is, but however, they can't control the people that come into the homes of their clients.
Correct.
And some of these people bring in criminals into their home. And these people, the people they're bringing into their home are abusing their children. It's the same thing. One of the biggest problems with sexual abuse is extended family living in the same home. And that's like a horrendous thing, because you really shouldn't have generations of the same family living in the same house. It's not a healthy situation. And in my experience, I was a sergeant for 22 years out of my 27 years. And I was on patrol for a long time before I went to the detective bureau. And my experience as a patrol sergeant was so many times the sexual abuse within the family was coming because extended family members lived in the same house with their niece, their nephew, or whatever. Uncle Joey lives in the same house with his 13-year-old niece, and that's where the problems arose from. And social workers, have these horrendous situations that they have to inject themselves into. And it's almost like not a situation you can win, Maybe you can make it better, but you can't win in that situation.
It's an uphill battle. Yeah.
Right.
What we want to try to prevent is obviously another thing like this happening and another child or children go missing or get killed. And we hear about this day in and day out across America. Just because we're speaking about this particular case doesn't mean that, there's not 100 other just like it in rural America. So the problem is that not all of them get the grand stage. And all eyes are on California City right now, Kern County, and that's you said it was how many square mile is Kern County?
A little over 8,000.
Over 8,000 square miles, Kern County. It encompasses Cal City, Bakersfield, and you said a couple other.
Ridgecrest to the east. Basically, there's a county that separates on the east and west sides. What separates Kern County from Nevada, and separates Kern County from the Pacific Ocean. That's how wide it is.
All right, quickly, people in the chat are asking, where can you get a DutyRon mug that says "Straight Talk on True Crime from an NYPD Retired Detective"? Well, go over to my Streamlabs merch store, and you can get this beautiful mug along with the detective's shield. And it says on the back here, DutyRon, straight talk on true crime from a retired NYPD detective. I'm drinking water from this. The clear liquid in here is not vodka, it is water. But yes, that's where you can go to get yourself some of the DutyRon merch. There is there's a whole bunch of stuff. There's a pull-up sweatshirt. There's hats. There's Josh set it all up for me. The guy's a tremendous asset to the DutyRon family. Bill Cannon has his own show, Police Off the Cuff, and I encourage everyone to go over and subscribe to Bill Cannon's YouTube channel. He is bringing fantastic content with such magnificent guests. He had Joe Lisi on there a couple of days ago, a retired NYPD lieutenant, right? Lieutenant?
Captain.
Captain. Sorry, Joe. That means Joe's never going to come on my show again. I demoted him. Third Watch, all this stuff, Sopranos, a big star. He's like probably one of the most successful retired NYPD professionals in the TV and movie industry.
I think he was probably the most successful NYPD cop that became an actor. He's got well over 100 roles he's played, probably 200.
Unbelievable.
He's been on everything,
Everybody go over to Police Off the Cuff. I am going to link it down below. I want you to follow my good friend Joey Brooklyn. Dustin, do you have anything you want to plug? Any of your stuff? I know you're not a live streamer, but you are. You're a pro. If you want, here's your moment.
Yeah, no, I mean, I would just like to say, I mean, I know it was on the trailer there earlier. The camera adds a few $100 pounds, so I'll take a hiatus from trying to start anything. But just KCAHT, we are not funded. We are all volunteers for that. We actually get donations sent through to the United Way of Kern. So if anyone would like to, it goes immediately to help survivors and victims. We don't have any staff that's paid. But yeah, we're behind the scenes. We don't get out in the media much because of what we do, and dealing with survivors and victims. We like to maintain that confidentiality, and we're constantly working with them and trying to get them back to normal in society. And like you said, it's modern day slavery, and to unravel, and Bill talked about it, to unravel someone that has been put into trafficking and all the trauma that they go through, and the torture and the sexual assault, that takes time. And it can't be done overnight, and it can't be done just by one organization. That's why we work in partnership with law enforcement, with our advocates, and because again, we can't do it alone.
So you guys rely on donations from businesses, from organizations, and do you get partially funded by Kern County?
No, we don't. There are grants out there, but there's a lot of that has to go into the grant and matching funds from government organizations. So, depending on budgets, that can't be done. So, in that, we just, we're at the grassroots level and trying to, keep everyone, keep that model going.
All right. So everybody go over and visit. I will link the KCAHT.org in the description section. Go over and check it out. I'm going to open it up to some questions for my guests. Let me grab this off. So that's the website. I will link it down below. I'm going to do 5 minutes of question and answer. So if you guys want, I'll try to highlight some of the questions in regards to Orson and Orrin West, Sincere and Classic. I have Doug Contreras, Dustin Contreras, co-director. I don't know why I keep calling you Doug. Sorry, Dustin. You look like a Doug to me for some reason. He is here, and can answer any questions. Bill Cannon, retired homicide detective sergeant. So I'm looking at the chat. Let's see. Is there okay, here we go. This is a good one. Vinny Flores, my good friend from Gilroy, California, the garlic capital of the world. Is there a place to volunteer or donate in every community? How would I go about finding one in my area?
So yeah, if you can just type in, anti-human trafficking organization, maybe Google in that area. If not, they can send an email to me via KCAHT, and I can link them to the local coalition in that area.
I'm going to ask one of my mods to put that in there. If you could say it again, Dustin, slowly, one of my mods could put that in there.
Yeah, if just look into, can Google whatever area they're in the county, and anti-trafficking organization.
Okay, great. Somebody asked in the questions, because it disappeared on me, it says to Bill or Dustin, do you guys think these kids are still alive? Go ahead, Bill.
Unfortunately, I don't think they're still alive. I think that from day one, they weren't alive. So when these parents went on TV and they just their demeanor, their body language, what they said was just so outrageously unbelievable that I think that the kids never ever were in California City. I think that they should have been reported missing from Bakersfield. And unfortunately, I don't think these children are alive at this point.
I appreciate that. Let's get back to Dustin. Dustin, you're up.
Yeah, I kind of the same. I had heard Bill talk about it on one of the other shows, and that question was asked. And then, unfortunately, just when you're dealing with anyone missing, especially children, and you look at that specific geographic area, if that's where they were missing from. To stay alive this long, and how many days have passed by since the reporting, I believe was the 21st. It doesn't look good. And that's the sad part of this, is that all this time passing by and there's no answers. So
right.
Yeah, I don't, okay. without good answers from the parents and.
Right. And I'm going to chime in here, and I concur with both these gentlemen. I hope and pray, and just like Chief Walker says, we hold on to hope that there's a slither of hope that they could be alive somewhere. But as the days go on, it gets slimmer and slimmer. But we're trying to be real with you guys, and that's the real opinion. And Dick Tracy sends in a super chat and says, "Is the name change a sign that the boys were trafficked?" That's going to be for you, Dustin. Is the name change a sign, perhaps, that the boys were trafficked?
No, I mean, if I recall right, they are adopted. They are not in the foster care system.
Yeah, they were first originally fostered by the adoptive parents, and now they're adopted.
And then I believe when they are adopted, they're allowed to, basically take the family name. So I don't see that.
I don't think so either. And Bill and I have answered that question before, but I just figured I'd throw it over to you. Let me get over to the Glarer real quick, because he's a good friend. Will, thank you for the super chat. What is the likelihood, in your opinion, that the West Boys are victims of familial trafficking? I know I screwed that up.
Trafficking, right? So and I think someone else had talked about her nephew, and that's terrible. That they were, again, everything is out there. Familial trafficking usually does happen, and it does happen with, adolescent boys and girls that are brought, whether the family that's in a familial type situation. I've seen generational pimps and traffickers where the grandfather was a pimp and it was handed down to the father and then to the son that was in their early 20s. And then they would traffic cousins within the familial, and it was just a known kind of thing and that, you can trace that back to poverty, or depending on, the culture of that family, if it was acceptable. So without knowing obviously all the facts of where their family is and where this could happen, I don't take anything off the table, but that's kind of probably down on the lower end.
Here's another good one. Thank you so much for that, Dustin. Here's another good one. What are the statistics of 2 children missing at the same time? I know it's very low here in New York, in this region over here. What's it? What's the stats over there in Kern County? Because I know you're a professional over there in the law enforcement end.
Right. Again, the same. Just thinking back over the years, anytime you've ever seen where 2 children are missing, it's usually a familial abduction where it has to do with custody and stuff like that. But never, just a stranger abduction of 2 children.
Here's a great one for Bill. I know, Bill, you're just dying to jump in here because you got a wealth of info. Jennifer Barrera says, and I know I screwed her name up. I apologize, Jennifer. Don't shoot the messenger here. I've got your question highlighted. Bill, why haven't they been interrogated? And she's referring to both adoptive parents. Bill, you talked about this 100 times, so go with it.
Yeah, I think at this point they have invoked counsel, and so the police are not allowed to speak to them any longer. But in the beginning of this case, they had to gingerly ask them questions because in the beginning, of course, they were victims. And as the suspicion started turning toward them, they had to treat them as suspects. And once the police treat you as a suspect, people will basically put up with it for so long till they think they can't outsmart the police any longer, and then they'll invoke counsel, and then they're protected by having an attorney, and the police can no longer, by law, speak to them once they invoke counsel. But I think that the police tried to, play it cool till they had a certain amount of information, and they started digging harder and harder and harder. And at that point, they both invoked counsel, and now they can't speak to them any longer.
Yeah, that's a great answer. Thank you. And a lot of people think, well, if they got counsel, the police can just call them in with the counsel. But the reason they obtain the counsel is so the counsel can say, no, are you going to arrest my client? Okay, no, then we're not coming in. Right. You can go self. Here's a great question for you, Bill. I know I'm going to have to double pay you tonight. So that's going to be 2 cafe mocha lattes from Starbucks. We don't drink Starbucks.
No, I don't go to Starbucks.
Real cops don't.
Dunkin' Donuts.
Yeah, exactly. I retract that with shame. Here's a great one from Love Liminart. 1, I know I screwed that name up. I suck at the names. Question: will the grandparents get arrested if they knew about the children going missing and the nefarious behavior, or if there is a crime committed and the grandparents knew about it? I can answer it, but I'm going to let Bill.
That's a wide, that's a woulda, shoulda, coulda type question. But I would think that the police would, if they are able to arrest the parents, they would probably rather use the grandparents as witnesses against the parents than actually lock up the grandparents, unless their behavior is so egregious that they crossed the line and they committed a felony or some other crime that implicated them in this. Other than that, the police would rather use them, I think, as witnesses.
Right. I want to tell a story that I've told in the past, but this will be the condensed version. So I'm gonna put myself on solo layout. Around 1993-ish, I had a child abuse case so severe. I was on patrol. I started in 91. So Bill, you'd be calling me a rookie. I had a female sergeant working patrol in the 7-7 precinct. That's the Kingsborough. I think it was the 5th walk on Kingsborough. 5th walk. It's over there in Crown Heights. A really rough neighborhood. We got a call for a screaming child, 2:30 in the morning. So screaming child, investigation, patrol cops. I was with a female officer. We got there, and to make a long story short, a woman answered the door at 2:30 in the morning with a 40-ounce, drunk, couldn't even give us an explanation of, is there any kids here? She was just slurring a speech. I put my foot in the door. This is the 90s. Put my foot in the door. I got in. And there was a young boy, 7 years old, on the couch at 2:20 in the morning on a school night, not sleeping, wide-eyed. And I just got down on one knee. I remembered my academy training to get at eye level. Kids, you don't talk from standing up to them. I got down. I said, hey, my female partner brought the mother into another room, and there was a grandmother there. She was in her 80s. And the grandmother was up, but she wasn't saying anything. I asked the kid what was wrong, and he whispered in my ear, save me. And as soon as he did that, I took the covers slowly and pulled them down off of him, and there was burn marks all over his body, like cigarette burn marks. So we locked up the mother. I wound up getting a little heavy-handed with the mother because she told me that he deserved it because he got a bad report from school. I knocked her to the floor. The female sergeant responded when we had the collar. She instructed us to take the grandmother. So I locked up the grandmother because she failed to make a report about this abuse because she claimed to know about it, made statements on the scene, and she said she was too scared to report it. So to answer that question, yes, if somebody knowingly knows that there was a crime being committed against anybody, not just a kid, they're getting collared. So that's my condensed story. And that's how it went. We put her in the cell. I brought a chair in the cell. I sat her down, and then her granddaughter came. The mother's sister was an NYPD cop, and she made a complaint against me for locking up her grandmother. But that complaint was I was exonerated, and it was thrown out. But I said to her when she came into the PSA, that's the police service area for the housing, when the off-duty cop came in there, I said to her, what you should be more concerned about is your nephew with burn marks all over his body. How come you didn't know about that? And she didn't like that because I snapped right back at her. She came in my face and was like, how come you locked up my 83-year-old grandmother? And I explained to her why we did. Sergeant told us we had to lock her up, and she knew about it. But I'm making a complaint. She went ahead and made a complaint against me, but it was thrown out. This is just ridiculous. So that's how it goes. Bill, again, I appreciate you being here. We're over an hour at this. I know, Dustin, congratulations to you on your new bundle of joy coming in. He had a 4D sonogram today, so congratulations.
Thank you. Starting all over.
Yeah, it's all good. It's all good, brother. I hope you'll come back again and see us. I'd love to have you back because there's a lot of unanswered questions. People want answers to a lot of different things. I mean, here's another question coming in about the backyard. If they were playing in the backyard on a patio, wouldn't their scent be there? And we had Doug come in, the LAPD canine police officer, 32 years on the job, and he said that if their scent was outside, the dogs would have picked up on it. If they were outside, in fact, playing out there, like they said, on concrete, and we all know that they weren't there, then they would have picked up on it. The scent inside the house, bedding, clothing shared, a mattress, a toy, right? It could have the kid's scent on it. We talked about this, Bill. It's getting a little redundant, but people have questions. So,
yeah, and I know people talk. If you see something, or you see something, say something. And to reiterate, kind of that, when you're dealing with human trafficking, we want people to educate themselves, so you're not mistaken what you're seeing. And then if you are seeing something, you actually have the education to do that. So if you do. I know someone from Gilroy asked, how can they get involved? That's the biggest way. Look for a human trafficking 101 class that they will put on free. It's easier to do it by Zoom now. We offer it here, obviously. And we train people in what to look for and then how to report those things. Because like I said earlier, these things go on, when it comes, everyone wants to put the blame on law enforcement, CPS,
right.
Without personnel, we can't have eyes everywhere. And we ask, people, it's sometimes, it's not cops and everyone else kicking doors in and just making these busts like they did with this Desert Star Motel, and saving the day. It's actually a normal community member armed with education that is the unsung hero that saves people. And right. That happens a lot when it comes to human trafficking. And it can happen when there's going to be, thank God, shows like this, and everyone keeping it in the media that someone may see these boys, if they are still alive, and call someone, and maybe they can find these boys alive and well.
Yeah, and those are well-spoken words. I mean, coming from someone boots on the ground and is in that area, you're in that area, and you know what the terrain is, and you know what what's against the law enforcement, and we rely again. is a $100,000 reward for the information that leads to either the return or answers to the questions of where these boys are. Slammer, if you put up a super chat and we didn't answer the question, put it in the chat again. I'll pick it up and I'll ask it quick before we close. But again, I want to reiterate, $100,000 can make someone's life change. That reward is up there. That reward would be coming to whoever put the police onto a recovery, a finding of these boys. It's about bringing them home and closure to their biological family and the people who still love and care. You know, we don't get caught up in saying, hey, I know my camera went out again, but I'm going to still speak with audio. I'm going to remove myself.
You know, one of the things, DutyRon, is that, and we discussed this before, is that the police know a lot more than we do. And they're probably getting very close to bringing the hammer down on somebody. And when that happens, most of our questions or all of our questions will be answered relative to what occurred here. But I think they're obviously have a lot more evidence than the public knows about, more evidence than what we know about. And at some point, there'll be closure to this case.
Yeah, I agree. You know, when the closure happens, I think a lot of questions will be answered, and you know, with your viewers that are out there posting good questions. I mean, you know, it's the natural human interest in these types of cases and what happened, and you know, Bill knows, and DutyRon, you know as well. Sometimes the easiest answer is usually the correct one, and I think, you know, I'm sure the guys and gals of Cal City PD and everyone else involved, they're pointed in the right direction, and hopefully get closure for the community. Because I mentioned it earlier that, you know, what the community is going through, if people are going through this all over the country and caring for what has happened to these boys, it hits hard locally, and I can tell that the community is hurting right now.
No, absolutely. And the only thing we can do is hope and wait, and hopefully we know that the police are on the right track, and you know, at some point we'll get closure to this case. You know.
Yeah, and you know, the area, they talk about the area, you know, and Bill, I know you said they probably didn't even make it, you know, and it kind of makes sense what they talked about, the, you know, the smell of the clothes being inside the house, but never on the outside. So that's kind of telling.
Okay, here's the question. Thank you guys for eating up that time, and I know you guys are talking about good stuff. Slammer sent in a super chat and says, why does the CPS Missing Children's website show baby only months old listed as runaways? Hundreds of runaways, including babies. That's going to be for you, Dustin, because I can't speak to that.
Yeah, and I'd want to look at the website. You know, it could be a mistake. I think if they're listing them as runaways and also as missing, so runaways, even though they could be runaways, they are still missing. Even though there may be proof of life, they're still considered a missing child. You know, per NCIC, how they have to be, you know, listed in the federal system. So, and if they have a baby picture, you know, maybe that was the only picture that they had at that point. I'm not sure what specific they're talking about, but that could be just a umbrella term that's used on their website.
Right. I got another question for you, Doug, and this pertains to, you know, in your area. Why isn't these missing boys, the poster that we see plastered all over the place, why isn't it not on Bakersfield website, Kern County, or Cal City? Do they have a policy that they don't list these? Because I looked for them just as early as today, and I didn't see it.
Are you talking like the city websites and such?
Yeah. You go to the police department in California City, and it's not listed there. They're missing.
Yeah, you know, in depending on their webmasters and what they do, I would imagine maybe they just rely on Facebook if they have a Facebook page. If that's,
Bill, what do you think about that? I mean, I would think that should be on there. He got most wanted posters and stuff like that. I'm looking at them now, but nothing for missing.
Yeah, no, I mean, I would want that plastered all over the place. In fact, in the beginning of the investigation, they should have been handing out flyers all over the place to the community, to the public, help us help you flyers, that type of thing, with the pictures of both boys on it.
Yeah, yeah. I'm going to actually put that in my notes to ask John Walker when I have him live. For those of you who don't know it, I made contact with Chief John Walker on the phone, and I'm going to have him on probably this week, one day this week on my live stream. Look out for that. I'll probably spend about 20 minutes using Zoom or whatever he wants to use to do a Q&A with him. And I already have about 20 questions that you, the viewers, sent in to me. I have them written down on a pad, and I'm going to get to some of the tough questions for him. So if you're not subscribed to my website, go over to DutyRon.com. If you're not subscribed to this channel, consider hitting that subscribe button, hit the notification bell. Follow me on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, all one word, DutyRon. I'm going to let my esteemed guests, my good friends Bill and Dustin, go for the night. I hope each and every one of you got some value from this important live stream. We're talking about sincere and classic missing 3 and 4 year olds from California City, December 21st. There was national coverage on ABC, World News Tonight. I think a couple of other stations, national coverage. That's tremendous. Bill, before we go, I wanted to, and I keep thinking of these things on my way out. I made a statement that it doesn't matter what they said in those live coverages, because coverage from World News Tonight was just regurgitating old information. But it was the fact that it was on the national stage that helps investigators, correct?
Absolutely. Because look at the broad base of people that are going to hear this. Maybe you'll get a phone call. Maybe someone will call in and say, look, I saw this or I saw that.
Right.
Television and media is a huge advantage to use for the police to use in their favor in these investigations like this.
Yeah. I mean, Dustin, you can definitely chime in on this because, Kern County, like you said, over 8,000 square miles. A lot of these cases, that you guys pick up, murder, rapes, assaults, robberies, they're all getting, enhanced by public calling in on the tip line, right?
Right. Yeah. And then you have to hit all facets of that too. Like Bill said, Bill talked about, handing out flyers, something simple as that. I spoke to someone today, a colleague of mine, had no clue about this case. So, if they're staying off the social media boards and sticking, or maybe not even watching the local news and just kind of thinking, a world picture, not knowing locally what's going on. And so it has to be able to reach everybody. So yeah, I totally agree. It needs to just be blasted out there.
Yeah. And the more people that talk about it, the better. So even these live streams, make sure you share them out, put them onto your social media. Even if you don't have a large presence, just share it. Everyone that you go into, not just mine, go over to everyone who's covering this in a clear and concise way. And just even if they're talking about it, just share it, because the chances are someone might see it. All right, guys, I'm going to wish you a lot of love and respect like I always do. God bless the world when I end. God bless the United States of America, and God bless each and every one of us here in the chat. I want to just say sincere and classic. We hope that they're found and that closure can be brought to the family and all victims of crime throughout the world. Thank you, Bill Cannon, retired NYPD Sergeant, police off the cuff, and Dustin. Great to have you guys on. Thank you so much, you two.
Bill, DutyRon, it's been a pleasure and an honor. Thank you.
Nice to meet you, Dustin.
Nice to meet you, Bill.
Guys, hang around for after this. I just want to talk to you quick. Good night, guys, from New York City, from also in the Kern County area, from Dustin. Peace and love from New York.